Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 994 of our daily content grind, and today I'm thankful I don't have a shout out because this video is already going to take way too long. So, it is the first of the month, which means it's time for a monthly Q&A. If you want to leave a question for the next one, then do it in the comments below. Please keep it to very short, quick answer questions. Keep it to one question per person so we can get through everybody's questions. Keep it within YouTube TOS, and if you're going to just leave a comment on the video, please mark it as a comment so we don't waste time on it going through the questions. That said, there's over 200 replies to this video. As of this recording, 234 to be precise. This is getting absurd. I might have to start breaking this into like 2 videos, and this will have to be like the first and the second of the month type thing. But let's see if we can get through it a little bit quicker than we did last time. We will start with, what character would you like to see the Shattered Glass version of? Tarn and the DJD is hysterical. Just like a bunch. They're just hippies. They're just spacefaring hippies at that point. The ones I always thought would be fun for Shattered Glass are the more goofball characters. You know, like what does Energon Ironhide look like? Shattered Glass, just like a violent psychopath type. Just like, how ludicrous could you make him? How ludicrous could you make him? That's always one where I always like the Shattered Glass ones. They're just like drastic extremes. Not a good sign when after the first question I'm already going for the water, but throat is dry today. Alright, for a future cartoon or comic, would Stinger work as Bumblebee's rival? So, Bumblebee is about, yeah, okay, so, here's the thing. You can, but Stinger is a pretty blank slate as far as a character goes. It has to be the type of character that is just gets in under Bumblebee's skin and the type of personality that just rubs it in his face all the time. It has to feel like a proper rival, not just like I'm doing the same thing but for the bad guys, you know. It's got to be more about the attitude than the position or even the character. But yeah, it wouldn't be bad to use Stinger because Stinger is a nice idea, like a Decepticon version of Bumblebee that they never expanded upon. What do you think would be a good alt mode for Optimus Prime that is not any kind of truck? So that is tricky because truck is so good for Optimus Prime. And it rules out a lot of construction vehicles because they're just trucks with equipment on the back. I've forwarded this idea in the past that I wouldn't mind Optimus being a tank because that is, it's supposed to be, in certain contexts, it's supposed to be a heroic vehicle. So it would make sense, and I like the idea of like Optimus taking the offensive rather than trying to hide as a normal semi-truck. See, have you watched or collected anything from any of the modern versions of the 80s cartoons like Netflix He-Man or new Thundercats comics? So nothing really from the new Thundercats stuff. Every now and then I will buy, there's some design from the new He-Man line that I do like. I still need Goddess Tila and like Super Orko. I'm not even sure what to call that one. Yeah, and I do get a few of the Masters of the Universe Origins when it's a character that, means a little bit to me. Not a whole lot though. Not a whole lot though. That said, there is one retro toy coming out I'm going to have to drop good money for, presuming I get it. I have the time to catch it. Favorite Mortal Kombat character? That floats. So, for whatever reason, I guess just my green obsession, I really like Reptile. But I didn't like him when he went full lizard. I'm not a big fan of that Reptile. I'm a fan of the Green Ninja Reptile, which means in the new game he's fantastic. He's like the coolest he's ever been. But as far as beyond that, it varies. There's takes on Melina I really like. There's Kintaro I think is like one of the coolest designs. Classics like Scorpion and Sub-Zero. Yeah, that's like a mood of the day type answer. What do you think is the worst / most unfitting reuse a mold for a different character? I've mentioned it a lot. I feel like it's anytime they tried to use the Revenge of the Fallen bludgeon mold for someone. They tried it as Overlord, and Overlord, and then they tried it as Megatron in GDO. I thought it looked absolutely terrible both times. I thought they did it just because, hey, tank, Megatron. I thought it was extremely ill-fit. If we went back toward minicons again, would you say, could you see Wheelie turned into a minicon instead of just a tiny Autobot? No, I don't think you downgrade any Autobot or Decepticon into being a minicon. I think you just make the minicons be their own thing. You know, otherwise you cut yourself off from those characters, and really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to take someone who's like a fully fledged character and reduce them down to a beep boop minicon. See, does your Triad project have something to do with Steven Universe? Because that logo and the one from Diamond Authority are very similar. I'm glad you're asking. Glad you're asking questions. So, Triad's part of it, but it is Project Starcatcher. Triad itself is not the project. It's just part of it. As for the logo, diamond logos like that are actually pretty common. That's why mine is kind of a minor point in the Triad logo. You know, I'm trying to minimize the usage of it a little bit compared to a lot of other places that use it. So no, it's nothing to do with Steven Universe, but good for thinking. Good for thinking. I like to see people thinking about it. Let's see, who would you like to see take over the next Transformers series? So the hard part about that is it doesn't really matter about who hosts it. Like, yeah, like I would prefer to go to Netflix or Amazon, so it has a much wider reach than it did on Peacock. But the problem with this is it's about who actually does like the writing and the animating. Beyond that, where it gets hosted can be kind of inconsequential. Granted, I thought they did a great job writing and animating Earthspark, but some people disagree with that. We did a whole video about that. But no, yeah, Amazon or Netflix, it's got to end up somewhere with a wide reach. Have you ever had your hair braided? No. I've had it threatened upon me by female friends, but I have never allowed it to happen. Which 3 Seeker molds, as far back as Time's Return, do you think best fit the animated Sunstorm color distribution, visually speaking? So, to keep this simple, I'm going to go with the one that I might pick, and it's probably the Power of the Prime Starscream mold. Because if I'm thinking Sunstorm, I want him to look large and powerful, and that mold is not fit for Starscream. It's just too bulky for him. It's an ill fit. But done up as Sunstorm, I could actually see that working. I could actually see that looking pretty good. Why is Bumblebee the most perfect being in creation? That's a Bumblebee is a really funny way of spelling Star Saber, but good. You know, I don't judge. I don't judge. So why has Hasbro not made a Titan Armada Unicron yet? We all know it's going to sell. Plus, there's an obvious repaint, and if you like creative, probably because they're a little bit gun shy after the Haslab, trying to keep it special. Like, obviously, a Titan Unicron would be much smaller and a much different figure. The one thing to keep in mind is Titans are actually way smaller than they used to be. Like, I would be on board with this if we were still in the early days of like 2-foot tall Titans. But these days, that Unicron really isn't going to stack up very tall against a lot of the contemporary Unicron trilogy toys. Like, especially think like Metroplex. Like, he's just going to be about... I don't know. I mean, there's obvious money to be made there. I just think they might want to hold off. Frankly, the real reason is because the Haslab Unicron was successful. So if they're gonna do Armada Unicron, that'll be a Haslab too, because they can get away with it. Have you seen Lost Age Black Knight Optimus Prime? I probably have, but I can't remember it offhand just by the name. So you'll forgive me if I don't like describe it right off. Is it true that when the 2007 movie came out, people really couldn't tell what was happening on screen and couldn't tell the characters apart? So that was a pretty common thing for a lot of normal moviegoers. For Transformer fans who had gotten to know these designs for months before the movie came out, it was a little bit easier. But you think about like the Barricade and Bumblebee fight scene that's filmed in the dark. Both designs are fairly dark. Even like Bumblebee's bright yellow really gives kind of like loses out to a lot of the gray that's in that design. So yeah, like, it does get really hard to tell. Like, even in the movie theater back then, it was really hard to tell exactly what was going on. The fight scenes were just way too kinetic and a little bit too frantic to really follow, and the character designs are just a lot of muted tones and a lot of gray. So yeah, things started blending together sometimes. Let's see, and yeah, like, especially that was more of a common problem. Like you mentioned, like, your experiences. Like, it's more of a common problem for moviegoers who didn't know the designs very well. That's what it basically boiled down to. If you were a Pokemon gym leader, what type would you specialize in? Judging off your favorite Pokemon, I'm guessing Bug. Yeah, Bug is a very unrepresented type in gym leaders. It doesn't get much love there because it is one of the weaker types. But yes, any excuse to rock a Scyther, I will take. And there have been some fun Bug Pokemon since then. You can make a pretty big variety team with Bugs now. With the recent news of the release of both the Beast Machine soundtrack and the upcoming Beast Wars soundtrack, do you think there's a possibility that both shows get re-released on DVD or Blu-ray? That's actually... I'm not sure how likely that is, just because physical media doesn't seem to be what Hasbro's really paying attention to anymore. They've been more focused on getting their stuff out on streaming services or YouTube. So I don't think that's the case. I don't think you're going to see another release of those, unless like a big demand for physical media starts popping up. And yeah, if a few streaming sites go down, or if if enough people find out those rentals and those purchases you made to, like, own them digitally just suddenly ends, then you might see a demand for physical again. But until then, I don't think this is in the cards. Favorite G2 rap? I mean, it's a go-to answer. It's the Bruticus. I mean, I think all the raps are terrible, but those raps scream of men in boardroom thinking they're cool with the kids. But yeah, the Bruticus one is just so cheesy, I have to like it. When buying a figure, do you typically go for a character you have attachment to, or just whatever looks cool, ignoring overlap? I pretty much just go for anything these days. Does it look cool? Sure. Does it seem like the engineering is interesting? Sure. Am I attached to the character? Sure. Is it a hole in my collection I could fill? Sure. You know, there's a lot of justifications that I use for buying Transformers these days, but generally just comes down to, do I like how it looks? Do I think it looks good? Because every now and then I will skip a few that I thought, like, yeah, I don't think that's the right idea. I don't think that's necessary. What are your overall thoughts on the Commander class? Are there any specific characters you'd like to see in it? That's technically 2 questions. You're trying to sneak it through with commas. I do really like the class overall. I think it has been the most consistent performer for Transformers. The only, like, you could point out, like, Rodimus Prime as a low point, but I still thought that was also a really good toy. It just doesn't do as much as recent Commanders have done. You know, it allowed us to get a really good Jetfire out there that looks like, you know, the cartoon model. As far as just, like, characters I like to see in it, I'd love for Commander to fill in gaps. You know, like, I would love to see a Magnaboss. I think that'd be a really good one to run with, especially after we just did Magmatron. I think it would be a good home for potentially a big convoy, but I would rather see, like, an optimal Optimus there first. And the other thought in my head is new Jinrai. Though with the Masterpiece coming out, that's far less likely. But I think it'd be a great spot for a brand new Power Master Optimus. Would it be a good idea for Hasbro to make a Commander or Titan class Overlord? I mean, again, yeah, that's another one I would love to see at the Commander class. A lot of people asking 2 Commander class questions back to back. See, would you like new tape formers? Absolutely. We've been relying on the old ones for way too long. If we're going to keep running Soundwave as a way of, like, having that chest gimmick and, like, internal figures, then yeah, we're overdue to come up with a few new ones. And I don't just mean repaints. I mean, like, let's actually come up with some new animals and vehicles and things. If there was a Transformers collaborative with the Godzilla franchise, how would you want to see it executed? A single Titan class release of Godzilla himself, or a smaller Commander class Godzilla with a possibility of other Kaiju? As cool as it would be, so as cool as it would be to actually have like a Titan class Godzilla, keep in mind in the Transformers verse, he's actually not going to be all that big compared to some of their other characters. Though I suppose that still brings him close to Titan. I think more or less I would rather it just be like no bigger than a Commander, just so it's affordable. I wouldn't want it to be like outrageously expensive because, you know, it's a Titan class. Really, the true answer here is it should be smaller. It should be smaller because we want to have the option of the other kaiju. I want a Mothra. I want a King Ghidorah. You know, I want a Baragon. You know, I want Anguirus. You know, like Rodan. Just keep them coming. Keep them coming, which you won't do at the larger size classes. Let's see. Since I'm trying to make sure I'm not skipping anything. Since Studio Series is doing a subline known as Gamer Edition, do you think Hasbro will ever do any of the characters from Transformers Prime the game or not? Probably not. I think they want to keep with the higher profile games, and Transformers Prime the game really wasn't all that well known or well played. Surprisingly good game that no one gave a chance to, but no, I don't think we're ever going to get anything like that. You might see them move into Devastation, but that might be the extent of it. Let's see, if the Transformers TMNT crossover gets a second toy, what alt mode do you think Shredder would have? So, I think the answer is the pneumatic module. That's what he turned into in the original toy line. That seems to be like the easy question to go there. The real question is like who's gonna have the guts to like retool like Cybertron Primus into a Technodrome? Where's that? That's the one I wanted to see. Do you think Hasbro has missed on making modern Prime Viacons in Legacy? There's a lot of troop builders I think they've missed on. Here's the trick. I don't think you could improve on the Prime Viacons. Like the mainline Prime Viacon is one of the most brilliant Transformer toys ever made. I don't think you could improve upon it. I think if they made a new one, it would have to be a new concept that looks similar to them as an homage, but you'd have to come up with something completely different. I don't think you could match how good those toys were. So that's the biggest trick to it. Though, yeah, any popular troop builder like that, you know they're going to sell 3 or 4, you know, to each person. I bought 3 of the Sharkticons. Mostly because I kept finding them on sale, but you know. Is there anywhere I check contact to check if a Transformer I have is the prototype copy? I got my hands on what I thought was some knockoff minicons, but I can't find any history on them. So for the minicons, there's a lot of really weird ones out there. There's some all-white ones that were part of a contest that kids had to color on themselves in order to get an official version made as a prize. There were X-Dimension minicons that came in really weird colors. But yes, there are some just really weird minicon colors out there. Your best bet is to just check TF Wiki for the different mold that minicon is using. And if there is no version of that mold that matches your colors, then you might have something up. But I'll tell you, it is extraordinarily unlikely that you have prototypes. Because that is extremely rare that those come up anywhere. If your theory that a new Bruticus is on the way after Superion turns out to be true, do you think they will repaint Vortex into a new Alpha Bravo so you can join Megatron in escaping your list of Transformers and never get new toys? Ha ha ha. No, I think Alpha Bravo is gone. I don't think you're going to see another Alpha Bravo. It's a shame. I think all those like extra characters from Titans Return really do need a combiner of their own at some point, but I don't think you're going to see Vortex redone into Alpha Bravo. You're going to see Bruticus done the thing they always do with Bruticus, which is to just make him G2 colors at some point. Maybe they go like really left field and do Battle Gaia. That would be hysterical. But no, No. They're gonna do. Here's what's gonna happen. They'll piecemeal a G2 Bruticus to you, like they're doing with the G2 Stunicons, and then they're going to do Ruination, probably as a gift set or something. So that's all the uses they need out of those molds. You're not gonna see anything else besides that. Have you ever tried your hand at doing your own custom transform before? Which figure? What figure into which character? Yes, I do have exactly one time. So I did attempt to do an Energon Ironhide into a Trailbreaker, which I actually did like some extras, part. I did some like weird part nonsense to make it closer to Trailbreaker. Unfortunately, never. I got stuck with no option for a head, and then I just kind of like lost interest in finishing it. The only one I actually ever painted and finished, I did an Energon Sharkticon into RID Night Cruise, because I love the Night Cruise design. In fact, I can look right now, like behind my prototype kickback, I actually still have mine right here on the hutch of my desk. I really want to do another one someday. I just can't figure out what I want to do. Do you think a Haslab or core class size GoBots along with their commander playset be feasible? We've been over this. Hasbro cannot do anything that resembles the old GoBot toys because they are physically nearly identical between. They are very, very close in design between the animation models and the original toys that Bandai still owns. So they could not do anything that like closely resembles the original GoBots. They can't at all. Also, the Commander playset, kind of boring. I'm just gonna like flat out say, like, I have one because someone generously sent me one, and it's a really cool bit of nostalgia for me. But it is a boring piece. It's cool for novelty, but that's about it. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't think that's feasible. Would the store you work at sell old Digimon figures like the ones from Tamers or Frontier? If someone sells it to the shop, absolutely, we would be interested in stocking that. We actually have, weirdly enough, I do have a Digivolving Birdramon figure still in box, and it's the Japanese version, no less, that is actually in stock. It's very expensive because of that. Question, is JT Prime 17 secretly your evil twin brother? Because you're TJ, he is JT. You are Omega, the last, he's the Prime, sometimes he's the first. No, I don't even know JT Prime. Great asset to the community for how much he has leaked over the years, but no, I do not know. I don't know the man. Far as I know, I'm an only child. Unless I was split off from a twin evil brother in some weird soap opera way. Do you think Power Rangers' reputation will ever reach the Robotech situation of why do we need this when you could just get Sentai instead? No, because I think Power Rangers has way more presence in the US than Robotech ever did. Not even remotely close. So while Hasbro really bungled the Power Ranger license, Power Rangers still has a lot of marketability in the US to be tapped. You're not going to have anyone, and really Super Sentai just doesn't have reach over here in the US. Not the way they need to really make a collector's line work. Yeah, no, we're not. No, Power Rangers is never going to have the Robotech problem. Have you seen The Amazing Digital Circus? Yes, I have. It is quite good. I did quite enjoy it. I wish the episodes would come faster, but independent 3D animation, I can understand them taking time. Needs to get picked up by a major player, like an Amazon or a Netflix, so we can get like the funding to roll out a full season worth. Let's see. What is a character you feel should be able to create one of your main characters in a series movie but just doesn't get the spotlight? Pick a character. Oh my god. There's part of me that feels like you could do it with like RC because she is extremely prominent and well known, even though she's not a major figure. You could probably do it with Hot Rod because, hey, he was the star of a movie already. He won't make anyone cry in this one, I don't think. Honestly, you could do like an origin Megatron story and just have him focus, like the fight pit, the overbearing Autobot Council, all of that. Like before Orion Pax even becomes, like, you end on like Orion Pax walking onto the scene. Like that's like the end movie stinger moment. No, we're getting a different origin for Megatron in the movies this year. Why do you think we don't get vehicles like school bus, taxis, or even pizza delivery alt modes? Probably because they think they aren't cool enough for kids to buy. Keep in mind, even though we kind of see like Generations as the main Transformer toy line these days, they still make sure the toys look cool, so kids just walking the toy aisle will point at it and tell their parents to buy it for them. So, buses, taxis, pizza delivery, trucks, or whatever, they're just not as interesting for vehicles for kids. They want to make it cool things, sports cars, jets, that kind of thing. Is there a fictionally Transformer design that still never had a toy that you really want to see? We do ask this question a lot. A lot of it does come down to like comic book designs. I've mentioned Anode and Lug. I would love to see toys of. Rung, I'd like to see a proper toy of, not the Target Master thing. Yeah, there's a lot from the IDW 1.0 verse that really should have gotten toys. Beyond that, if I'm like looking at thinking like, there's very few left in that have appeared in animation that haven't gotten a toy. Like my original answer would have been DevCon, but we got a DevCon, and then it would have been Filch from RID 2015, but she's on the way. Alpha Tri, no, Alpha Trion's got him. We really are in that level of like Botanica is like the only one left. We're kind of down to that point now. Since Legacy gave us Cyberverse figures, do you think Prime or whatever toy line after that will give us better versions of the Terrans? That's going to be difficult to actually determine. So there is a lot of speculation on Earthspark's cancellation, which would mean that the Terrans would probably be off the table for a long time. I don't think you would see them in the next trilogy. I think it's more likely in the trilogy after that. Because hopefully someone at Hasbro actually sees that as a project to do like all the Terrans in their appropriate sizes. Just so we can finally have just one set of them and then just put them to bed. But if Hasbro sees Earthspark as a failure, then you're probably not going to see the Terrans again, unfortunately. Even though they are great characters and deserve a better go-around. Is there any fiction for how the Decepticons returned after the Season 1 finale, Heavy Metal War? No, there is not. It's an after-school cartoon. They're just back at the beginning of Season 2. Don't question it. Keep in mind, like, they weren't really big on, like serialized storytelling in those cartoons. They wanted them to be able to... They wanted cartoons that could air in, like, whatever order they wanted. So, you got in, you got your 22-minute adventure, and you got out, and you weren't missing anything. So a lot of like carryover story, like after the first 5 episodes ended, and then all it is mostly just a few multi-parters. So if you like most of us are a dinosaur enthusiast, I was just curious if you have a favorite dinosaur documentary, such as Walking with Dinosaurs, Prehistoric Planet, etc. I do really like Prehistoric Planet out of those, but that's mostly just the one that I can remember watching most recently. I don't really go out of my way for dinosaur documentaries. It's one of those things like if a friend of mine's doing a watch party for it, I'll sit in and listen. I'll sit in and watch. Let's see. Just got into your content a month ago, and you're one of my favorite Transformer creators for your consistency and quality of your videos and your more chill approach compared to other creators like Diamond Bolt. Hope you continue to be successful and only grow from here. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you. I'm glad you discovered me. I'm glad you're enjoying the vibes here. Out of all the Transformer Prime's unique takes on older characters, who would you enjoy a new figure of the most that would also have a good remold or repaint potential? You do mention a good one with Smokescreen. I'm actually surprised, as cool as that Smokescreen design is, that they have not done anything new with it. Another one that I would really like to have seen, I mentioned it before, the Prime toy line had an Ironhide at its like Cyberverse Commander class that was really, really cool. It was similar to the shape of like the animated Ironhide toy that we got as Cup in America. No, Prime. The Prime Deluxe. Man, I'm oh my god, I'm trying to keep them all straight here. Yeah, so there was a Prime Deluxe Ironhide that didn't really fit the bill, but the proportions and like the wide stature of the Commander version was so much cooler. And I would love for that to be like a modern Ironhide. I would love for them to do that. And they redid it as Trailbreaker too, and it worked really well as Trailbreaker as well. So I think that would be the question. I think that'd be the answer. If you could have any BotCon character get their big debut, how like Shadow Striker and Ape Link managed to, who would you pick? I'm trying to think of like who is a standout BotCon character who wasn't just like an old character brought back into the fold. Oh, that's actually a good one, because now I'm like trying to think like who is a unique BotCon character. That's the trick. So because like 90% of BotCon characters are not original. Man, I don't want to get hung up on this. I don't want to get hung up on this and like take too long on this one. I don't know if it's a big one, but like I miss Cat Scan. I miss the idea of like a maximal medic, kind of type character. I've got the little core class Cheetor. He can use him there. Beyond that, like there's a better answer. I guarantee you there's a better answer I'm just not thinking of. It's just like as I'm like rifling through things in my head, all I can think of are BotCon characters that are just like rehashes of G1 characters. The biggest one is, okay, here's the biggest one. Here's the real answer. Glyph and Tap Out. They got a Valentine's Day comic book that was great, and then all of these Cliffjumper Bumblebee molds and all this that are coming out, and no Tap Out and Glyph. It's a crime. They need more time. I like them. Which Transformers character would you like to see get a Bumblebee / Rise of the Beast design? I would personally love to see Astro Train, which would be cool. So in that style of design, to where it's like kind of movie, kind of G1, somewhere in that realm. We've done pretty much everybody at this point. So if we're going with the reboot verse, I mean, it's going to repeat an answer. But if we're doing reboot verse, that means Ironhide is back to being the red Autobot, which means the black truck slot is now free for Trailbreaker to come in and take. I'd love to see a Trailbreaker again. That's simple as that. A little respect for one of my favorites from the 84 cast. What beast mode do you think would Swindle have if he was in Beast Wars? I think a fox would work well. A fox would work well. It would defy the idea that mammals are the good guys. So like mammals are maximals. But you could cross it over. Fox wouldn't be too bad. If you want to play with Japanese mythology, a Tanuki would be good as well. That would be kind of funny. Or a raccoon. It's got to be some kind of thieving rodent, right? So I think a raccoon would work well for him too. Would you want to see a subline or a general set of figures of non-G1 characters done in non-G1 art style? So which potential figure would you want from this idea? So like movie versus Ironhide, Prime style Terrans, Unicron trilogy style Shadow, Dropkick, etc. So you put non-G1 art style in there, and that immediately throws off my idea, which is I would love to see movie characters done in more Generation 1 styles. I would like the characters to be reimagined in the way of like standard, like more typical Transformers. I think the answer beyond that would probably be movieverse characters in Prime style, because I always said that Prime really is how the live-action movies should have looked. They look modernized, they look very sleek and very complex, but they don't look like overdone, and they're still very bright and recognizable from each other. I think, they don't look like skeletons covered in shrapnel. So I would... I would love to see that. Like, what it really would look like if those movie characters were in a more prime style. Coming from someone who also appreciates the Armorizers and their concept, do you think they'd be better received if they turned into rock beasts/monsters instead, or are the rock vehicles part of their kooky charm? So I do think it is part of the charm. I wouldn't object to seeing like an animal form, but I think if you're making animals out of those stones, that they might get lost a little bit. Okay, a stone bird and a stone mammal of some kind, but how do you differentiate like a stone lion from a stone wolf? How do you differentiate quadrupeds that both have to look like they're made of rock? I think they just end up being a little bit too similar. So I think the vehicle's the right approach. I think you've got a little bit more potential. Also, the idea of a stone helicopter is hysterical to me. I feel like the Armorizers are like the final evolution of Flintstone technology. I think that's the bread and butter there. I think I like where it is. I think I like where it is right now. If you would have a SIC, Super Imaginative Chogokin style figure, who would it be? One from any Toku series or from non-Toku series. So for those who do not know, Super Imaginative Chogokin are like basically Power Ranger designs, like Kamen Rider, Tokusatsu designs like that, but super stylized and heavily detailed. They are extremely extensive figures. I have reviewed a few on the channel before. One from a Toku series, one from a non-Toku series. The non-Toku series gets a little bit more difficult. That starts playing into superhero genre, which is where I start getting into like my Spider-Man, my Carnage, my Deadpool potentially. I think Wolverine would look sick in that design too. If I'm going with Toku, my thought was Gridman. We kind of have that, like SSSS Gridman is kind of like that already, but I would like proper SIC style on a Gridman. I think would look really cool, especially if you start getting into like his like Thunder Gridman and King Gridman forms too. Since G1 Megatron is a tank now, slapping on his G2 colors has become an easy repaint. What I would like to see is a figure that's designed to be G2 Megatron from the start and gets repainted G1 colors. Okay, you started this with question. You didn't actually ask a question. You just said you'd like a Megatron design to be G2 from the start. I will agree with that sentiment, but please do not mark a question if you don't have a question. So like we're trying to focus in on questions at this point so we can get through these very quickly. Do you think Hasbro would ever reach the peak of engineering for mainline, like 86 being so close to the animation and being fun to transform? And do you think the more engineering put in will drive prices up? You can turn a rough day to a fun night for me most weeks. I appreciate that. I'm thankful for anyone that I can get through the week a little bit easier. I really do. I really love hearing that. Thank you. So, yes, the higher the engineering gets, yeah, that's going to increase the part count. That increases assembly time. All of that is going to increase the price. That would drive the price up. I do think one of the reasons why the toys are so expensive now is because in order to facilitate Armorizer, Weaponizer style gimmicks, we've had to go to full universal joints for all the Generations toys. That's a lot more engineering and a lot more parts than a ball joint, so that is going to add to the part complexity. I've said in the past that I think we're going to start seeing like a downgrade to engineering at some point. It's going to start with things like ankle tilts. I think will go by the wayside. You won't see like waist joints as often as you used to. I think we're going to regress at some point in order to keep the toys at like $25 for a deluxe. I think that I think that's the direction we're unfortunately going to go. I feel like they've reached a peak of engineering because at this point the budgets are going to tighten up so much that I don't think you can reach the engineering levels that they've hit in recent years. I think you are going to start seeing a downgrade, unfortunately. Why do the Protectobots rarely get G2 repaints opposed to Menasor, who the G2 toy is also unreleased? Because the G2 Stunticons were just so widely spread as such a rare commodity that we really don't even talk about the Protectobots very much, because the thing was, the fan awareness of the Stunticons is so much higher because one of them actually was released. So Breakdown was one of the original Botcon toys. So because of that, because one existed and has a few hundred units made, that's the one that fans became aware of. So that's why like you hear a lot more talk, and why there's a lot more lineage behind G2 Menasor than G2 Defensor. Even though, yeah, they're technically, Defensor is even rarer, because none of his figures were mass released. What do you think of the idea of a Final Fantasy VII collab figure that takes the SS-86 Junkion mold and extensively retools it into the Hardy Daytona with a robot mode featuring details based on Cloud? So, to do that would be pretty extensive. And you also point out that, like, the bike in FF7 doesn't really share a lot of Cloud's colors. So you'd have to be like, I think your better bet in that sense would be the Advent Children design, where Cloud's in black and the bike is in black. That's going to allow you a little bit more of a workaround in there. And then, like a nonsensical, like, repaint into his normal colors at some point. I mean, if we're doing collab stuff with Final Fantasy VII, just give me like a transforming Highwind. Or give me the weapons that transform into vehicles. One or the other. Thoughts on TMNT Mutant Mayhem? I actually never got around to seeing it, which is kind of shocks to me. I keep forgetting to go watch it. Which side of the Frenzy and Rumble color debate are you on? So I grew up with the cartoon. I had, well, I didn't grow up with the cartoon. I technically did through VHS tapes. But yeah, like my primary fiction in my brain is always the original cartoon where Rumble was blue, so that's where it's always been in my head. I know toy-wise he was originally red. That's just a thing. But I do prefer Rumble as the blue one. If it were at all possible, would you want a Transformers collab with Kamen Rider with the Trideron? That is a very obvious pick, isn't it? I'm not sure. I mean, that'd go great in Japan, of course. In the U.S., it would not work at all. It'd be weird, because, like, I feel like your bread and butter with Kamen Rider collab is to just make a motorcycle, right? And if you make it a motorcycle that's like one of the more common body shapes for a Kamen Rider bike, you can just retool it and repaint it into different riders for as long as you can get away with. So there is that to keep in mind. Let's see. Considering you like D&D, have you ever gotten into Warhammer? No, because I spend my money on toys. I can't afford Warhammer. Also, it's a strategy kind of tactical game. I don't like strategy tactical games. Not my thing. D&D is more about the role play, the theater, the mind for me. Like, combat is almost a secondary to me in D&D. While I like to be really good in combat, I like really heavy role playing, which is what draws me to that game. And you don't really get that in Warhammer unless you're really trying to act out the general shtick on the table, which gets a little weird. If your theory about... Okay, why did I get this question twice? That was weird. I don't think that's two people asking the exact same question, because it's worded exactly the same. That would be super weird. I could be wrong, but I think that just got posted twice accidentally. With John Warden returning to Transformers, is there any other former Transformers creators you'd like to see return, like Aaron Archer, for example? So, admittedly, I don't follow the behind-the-scenes people in Hasbro very well. The only thing that would come to mind for me is I'd love to see the creators of the animated line return, because the engineering on the Transformers animated toys is sublime. I would love to get that really fluid, smooth engineering style that toy line had again. But I don't know who is all responsible for that toy line, so I can't give you names. I do appreciate the comments of like people who enjoy the length of this video, by the way. If you make it all the way through this, whether you're actually watching it or just using it as background music, I do appreciate you. Thank you for being one of the troopers. If you can have an SIC of 3 characters from 8... Wow, why am I getting... Are you people like just like trying to sneak multiple questions in because I'm not paying attention? That's 2 SIC questions. Yeah, we're gonna keep going with this. We're gonna keep going with this. You didn't limit me though, so like I would probably keep the Gridman answer, but I would stick to Toku. I would stick to Toku and go with 01. I think would look incredible as an SIC design. And then probably who else? Oh my god. I know there's writer designs I really, really love the look of, and I just can't remember. Like Cross Magma. Cross Magma will look insane in SIC style. Looking back on your video of how to do a modern version of the Pretenders gimmick, do you think that if Hasbro ever considered doing that, will it work better as its own toy line? So, yeah, if they end up doing something similar to that, I think it would work best in, like, a Titan's Return style of, like, every Voyager in this line does this thing. You know, all of them are deluxes that come with the parts to upgrade them into a Voyager-sized toy, and then those parts happen to look like their Pretender shell. And all those parts come off and form into, like, a weapon platform or a vehicle for the smaller toy to use. That's, that was the idea back then. Yeah. I think it would have to be something where it's like, like Titan's Return, everyone's a triple changer. If they were to do that, yeah, everyone is a Pretender in the Voyager class. Might make or break the entire toy line, but you know what? It's about the only way to work. Which Transformers would be most interesting if gender bent into female characters? You've got a point about Man-Terror. Man-Terror really should have been female because, because, that's actually a thing. Because it's the female Mantis you have to worry about. And yes, it creates a pun with the name, too. For me, I've never really cared, like, about the, like, gender swapping characters. It's more or less, like, does it make the character interesting, or does it make sense for the new take on the character? Like, we have a female Skywarp in Earthspark, and I think it makes sense. I think it works, especially as a counterpoint to Nova Storm. I think they play off each other well. I think it works. Yeah, like, for me, it's not really like, oh, this character as a girl would be interesting. No, it is just more or less like, what do you do with the character after that? That's what I care about. See, do you think they'll ever revive Action Masters in a way that avoids drawbacks of that gimmick? You realize how many, like, non-transform... You're basically describing Transformers Red, and Transformers Red is awful. You're not going to see a revival of Action Masters because it doesn't seem like non-transforming Transformers really succeed for that long unless you're putting some real work into it, Like, YOLO Park puts in some really good work to theirs. 3-0 puts in the work. But then, like, you have, like, Super 7 Ultimates, which did not. You have Transformers Red, which did not. Yeah. Proper Action Masters, no. You're not gonna see that again. Should Power Masters, God Masters get new generations toys with the proper engine gimmick, even if they don't commit as much of a masterpiece genre with how far they're recreating it? So, I wouldn't mind a lot of those Power Masters actually getting new toys because a lot of them have gone by the wayside. You don't force their transformation to be stuck behind the engine gimmick. That's kind of a death nail to a lot of those older ones. You can manually do it, but man, that kills it. I think just for the sake of fun, I think you avoid that by just having like a little pilot figure for the vehicle mode, a little driver that turns into an engine you can plug on that creates like a cool detail in robot mode. I don't think you restrict, not only because that, kind of kills the fun if you lose the figure, if the gimmick breaks, but also that gimmick ain't going to be cheap to do these days. And it's going to take up a large center mass of that figure that's going to restrict its articulation and its transformation. You don't want that. Trust me, you don't want that. It just has to stick to it. Question, what's your favorite Prime feat? I see what you did. I see what you did. My favorite feat of Optimus Prime, like my favorite thing he did. There's a lot of really strong moments for Optimus Prime, like the charge of Autobot City in the movie, like that's an easy one. The end of the G2 comics, where he actually lets himself be devoured by the swarm, is like an all or nothing gamble to stop them. That's a really cool moment too. I really like that moment. I'm trying to think if there's other ones. Yeah, like I'm blanking now because I'm trying to remember 40 years worth of Optimus Prime moments. Those are the ones that come to mind though. Do you think doing a Commander class weaponizer would work? Like having a bulky robot that has all these parts to make smaller robots and many weapons. You're basically talking about doing a Diaclone reboot in the Transformer line, which could have some potential. There's no character in Transformers that would really be appropriate for that, and I think you'd have a hard time selling that as a toy itself if it depends so heavily on separating out into little extra weapons and accessory parts for other bots. I think that just gets a little bit too messy. Not to mention, if you break it down into that many parts, imagine losing one piece and you can't form his robot mode anymore. That's a huge drawback, unfortunately. So that's where I think that doesn't work anymore. Could you see a remold of Nerf Blaster Optimus Prime Rise of Beast, but as G2 Megatron? I mean, the colors would potentially be bright enough. That'd be funny. That'd be a funny way of getting a gun Megatron out. If you've seen the newest trailer for the latter half of Season 2 of Hell of a Boss, what do you think would happen? So, we are seeing, like, I'll say this, as I am recording this, the new episode has gone up. I haven't watched it yet. I feel like, yes, like, I don't think Imp is gonna break. I think there's gonna be a fallout with Stolas and Blitz. Mostly because, like, there's just, like, they gotta play the tension a little bit harder first before they actually put those two together. So, that's kind of where I'm at. It's kind of where I'm at. I have to watch the episode. Now I have to watch the episode. I'm not sure what else is gonna happen with those. See, with Takara now occasionally working with Bandai, do you think it's possible we could someday see Transformers in a Super Robot Wars game? I mean, potentially. Technically, Takara owns Transformers and it's licensed to Hasbro in a super weird way. So, you could absolutely see that. You could absolutely see that at some point. It'd be a weird thing because, Hasbro and Takara don't really have gaming divisions where they could get a fair trade-off from that. So it'd be tricky. Let's see, if Gun Megatron is impossibly illegal, how is Masterpiece allowed to make him? Because Masterpiece is a Japanese toy line where Japan has different toy laws than us. Simple as that. You will note, Masterpiece Megatron has been done twice. Neither time has it ever been sold by Hasbro, even when they were bringing all the Masterpiece toys over to the US. It can't be sold here. Japan, yes. US, no. How great was Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens' Festival of Friendship? Wow, you're asking me about a very specific promo. Oh, that's, yeah. That era of Jericho was extremely entertaining to me. The whole list of Jericho, I got a huge kick out of. Kevin, like, playing this up and then presenting him a new list that had Jericho's name on it. Like, that's such a good moment. That's such a good moment. Yes, it was great. Alright, do you have a favorite design from G Gundam? There's a lot. There's a lot. Was it Scythe Gundam? I wanted to say, like, I can't even remember offhand. It's been a long time. I like that one. The Neo Grease. My brain wants to say Zeus Gundam, but my brain also says I don't think it's that simple of a name. But that was a cool one too. If I'm looking at the main five, Dragon Gundam. Dragon Gundam, also cool. Master Gundam, also really cool. Yeah. I even like the silly designs. I like Windmill Gundam. It's just the dumbest thing, and I love it. Would you make a video where you give the Power Dashers individual personalities? So, for the Power Dashers, I would have to write one of those, like, underused Transformer characters things, because there's only 3 of them. I can't do a whole video about, like, here's 3 characters, here's the personalities I would give them. We would have to figure out an entire thing to give to the Power Dashers, which would be exceptionally difficult given their interesting alt modes. It'd be very tricky. It'd be very tricky. What's next for Studio Series G1 figures after Studio Series 86 has covered everyone that appeared in the movie? Then Studio Series G1 figures ends because it's movie based. Anyone who, like, keep in mind, Studio Series 86 started because Hasbro decided at the last minute that War for Cybertron's 3rd chapter would be Beast Wars based rather than movie based. So that's why 86 happened in the first place, and they just kept the ball rolling because it gives them an excuse to make new G1 toys in 2 different toy lines. Once they run out, that's it. Anything else that they could do would be just the exact same toy in Generations. So why not just release it in Generations? It's what they've been doing for years now. Yeah, but Studio Series is hitting a problem of, like, they're running out of characters they haven't done. 86 movie, live action movie, or otherwise. What would a Godzilla... Another one? Okay, you guys, like, do you guys plan this? What would a Godzilla crossover work better in, Beast Wars or Japanese G1, like Victory or Master Force? It probably would work better in Japanese G1 because, remember, Beast Wars characters are actually considerably small. You know, like Rat Trap is like us-sized. Or, Rat Trap. Rat Trap would be small for humans. Like Cheetor. I think Cheetor would be like normal human size. If I can remember, like, scaling correctly from, like, the very brief times we got scale in that series. No, Japanese G1 characters like Star Saber is gigantic. Like, he is a very, very large, like Jetfire size character. So that's your better bet for fighting off Godzilla. Also, Beast Wars doesn't have city formers to even the odds. Are you a Greek mythology? Are you a fan of Greek mythology? Who's your favorite Greek god or goddess? So I couldn't really tell you a favorite Greek god or goddess off the top of my head, but I do really like Greek mythology. I used to have a book of, like, Greek gods I used to take to school with me and just read through it when I was done with my work for the day. Yeah, I've not read through Greek mythology in a long time though. Let's see. I think the new Legacy Sideburn we're getting should have done more to have the alt mode resemble a more realistic vehicle. What's your take on it? So, I don't really mind it. I think the vehicle looks fine. It's definitely not a Dodge Viper, but I think it looks fine for what it is. Yeah, I mean, it could have been a more realistic vehicle, but the more realistic you get, the more you risk a licensing issue. For what it is, I think it's okay. Should have resembled him a little bit more, I will agree with that. But, you know, I don't mind it either. Has there ever been a Transformer that turns into a tractor, and will we ever get one? Besides RID Thunderhoof, I can't think of any. Let alone any farm equipment, Bobcat, ATV, or old-style truck. Thoughts? So this kind of goes back to the same answer I gave before, where a lot of those vehicles just aren't going to be cool for kids. I mean, there's kids that are going to like farm vehicle toys, but not widely enough to sell a Transformer figure. To my knowledge, you're correct. RID Thunderhoof is the only one. Like, even thinking back to, like, mini-cons. There's some construction vehicle mini-cons, but not, like, farm equipment vehicons. Or mini-cons, rather. But, yeah, things like ATV. There is an ATV, actually. What was it? Oh, what was the name? Energon's Sure Shock, the mini-con. That one was an ATV. Older style truck is a little bit harder. You did get one in the Generations line, or like with Cup. That's about it, though. Again, they tend to try to make things that look cool for kids rather than things that are like really old looking. Do you think Shattered Glass would work as an anime? Probably. For some of the characterizations in Shattered Glass, you'd have to do it as an anime. I don't think a cartoon would touch it. Why doesn't Shockwave turn into a gun anymore when his G1 alt mode was an unrealistic toy gun? Because the color scheme on Shockwave doesn't lend itself to what would be a legal gun today. Keep in mind, when we talk about unrealistic guns, we're talking like big wild design Nerf guns. Those are okay. Shockwave still overall has the overall shape of a gun that at a distance could be mistaken for a real gun. Especially if you make it accurate to G1 Shockwave, which means he's dark purple, which makes it harder to distinguish. I really do get tired. Can I just, like, please ask you to stop asking about legal gun mode Transformers? I feel like I've repeated myself for months now. They're not possible. It doesn't matter what loophole you think you figured out. If Hasbro could legally do it, they would have done it by now, because it would have printed money for collectors. It's not possible. Let's please put this to bed. Please. I'm not angry with this. I just think we're wasting time on these videos going over the same thing every single month when the answer is always going to be the same. You just have to let it go. Gun Transformers are just not going to happen again. Period. How about Fast and Furious crossover? Sure. As long as they are not an Autobot or Decepticon faction, they have to be specifically released as the family faction. That's my only one requirement. Any chance Hasbro would bring the Diaclone reboot figures and integrate them into Transformers line? Not a chance. Not a chance. As someone who has recently experienced Diaclone reboot toys for the first time, they're way too involved, way too complicated, way too many parts going on, and the plastic quality has to be really, really high to make sure a lot of those connection points don't break. So, Hasbro doing those? No, that's not going to happen. Also, I'll let you know, most all of them have some kind of part forming element to them when they transform, so they're not really suited to like resemble Transformers, really. Let's see. Here we got. What's your favorite of the following characters? Transformers Prime Shockwave, Earth Spark Shockwave, Dark of the Moon Shockwave, G1 Shockwave. So, I do think there's an interesting shade to the Earth Spark Shockwave since he was willing to work with the Terrans. My favorite Shockwaves are not even on this list. My favorite Shockwaves would be the IDW, who managed to manipulate literally the entire universe, which is kind of impressive to do. But beyond that, comic book Shockwave, like the one that was dictated by logic, like Marvel Shockwave, like dictated by logic and successfully overthrew Megatron. That was a really good Shockwave too, and he managed to stay a threat for a long time in that book. But Out of those 4 that you have listed, I would probably say Transformers Prime Shockwave would be the one I like the most. G1 Shockwave didn't have enough screen time. Dark of the Moon Shockwave is just a snarling monster, which is not a character to me. It's not a character to me. And then Earthspark Shockwave, like I said, I like him. I like him a lot too. Do you have any movies or shows that to you are good and decent enough on their own, but horrible adaptations of a source material? The problem is it's very rare when I've absorbed the source material. But that a lot of it does kind of fall into like so like for instance, the original Mortal Kombat movie, I think is an okay adaptation of the source material, but also kind of awful at it. But I think that movie is also really enjoyable in a very cheesy way. So like that's the first one that comes to mind. If I'm trying to think of any others, because like there's always such bad like video game stuff especially always has such bad adaptations. Yeah, offhand that's probably about the best one I could go for. I've never read Harry Potter, so I don't know if Goblet of Fire is how accurate that one is. Do you ever think we'll see non-G1 Beast Wars reissues? Probably. Now, we technically did for the 10th anniversary of Transformers Prime. I don't know, like, first off, they have to find out that other series have enough popularity in order to do that. Like, G1 reissues are always going to get away with. Beast Wars reissues, they kind of tested the waters, but they picked some really, really bad toys to release, so that didn't really pan out for very long. But, like, Unicron trilogy, like Armada, there's, like, an outside chance that you would see reissues of that. And we have seen, like, sparse reissues of things like Godfire Convoy, Big Convoy. It's very rare, but it can happen. A has-been hotel question? Yes. Don't come here and, like, yuck on someone's yum. If they want to ask has-been hotel, they get to ask has-been hotel. Don't come in here and get questioning of someone else. Just let them have their fun. If you could change one thing overnight about the manufacturing or distribution of Transformers worldwide, what would it be? Timing. As someone who has gotten caught, as someone who is currently missing out on something he really wants to order because Hasbro went and charged him $100 for a set that wasn't supposed to come out for a month yet, timing. Like, I would like the release dates to really reflect the dates that they actually get released. Do you realize in Japan, you can actually pinpoint the day things get released? Like, the toys have, like, a scheduled launch day. You know, it's not like, okay, well, we're going to release it in September. Oh, hey, surprise, we charge your credit card in July. You're going to have it tomorrow. That's where it gets to me a lot. That's where it really gets to me a lot. It's been a problem for years now. It's cool getting stuff earlier than we thought, but warn me about it. You know? If you can, my thought process is, if you can have release dates for video games, you can have them for toys. You just don't want to handle the logistics of it. But I think it'd be way better if I knew, oh, I could go to Walmart on this day and pick up this toy. If the Dinobots were to have a Titan-class member, which of the following would fit as a Titan? Mosasaurus, Ultrasaurus, or Megalodon? Most likely any of them. The thing is, like, we already have some of the biggest of the dinosaurs in the Dinobots. Like, a Mosasaurus is gigantic, but I'm not sure it really fits in. Same with a Megalodon. I don't think they really fit in with what a Dinobot is. But, like, you know, we had, like, you know, like, Age of Extinction gave us a Brachiosaurus, which is gigantic. So, I don't think you would. I honestly don't think the Dinobots would have a Titan class member unless you inducted Trypticon into the Dinobots, which IDW 1.0 did. So, technicality. Imagine if the 1000 video was just the Q&A for that month. I actually double-checked that when I came over. Like, I know, I as soon as I found out 1000 was going to, you know, like, I wouldn't know what to do with it. What would happen is I would delay the Q&A video to the second. That's what would happen. What was your time experiencing buyer's remorse when purchasing a Transformer? Oh, So, when it comes to buyer's remorse, now, modern toys, I have had buyer's remorse once in a while. I try to be a little bit more careful about which figures I buy and a little bit more okay with letting them slip past. Trashmaster, I thought was a big waste of my money, because I thought it'd be more interesting than what it turned out to be. But it's just a very plain, kind of like by-the-books Transformer. Nothing really special about its engineering. The combination method really isn't fleshed out enough to work with the other Junkions. It's just kind of a dull design all around. It's kind of a dull toy all around. So, like, I kind of, like, regretted buying that one. Expected on eBay soon. But, when you talk about like buyer's remorse for me, that's the origin of Plastic Addict. Getting a whole bunch of Armada toys that I was really disgusted by, and I'm like, I'm just going to take some aggression out on some of these things I shouldn't have bought. But then they're not remorseful anymore, because I got a new form of enjoyment out of them. That's kind of like what Plastic Addict started off as. Let's see. If you weren't in Florida, which state would you likely to live in and why? I mean, most likely I'd live in Indiana because that's where most of my family is. If I had my choice of state, maybe Arizona. There's a lot of like art out there, a lot of really cool toy stores, a lot of beautiful scenery. Loved looking at the mountains in Arizona. Really, really beautiful place to go, especially if you hit that like right in between the seasons where it's not raining or you know, where the temperature isn't scorching yet, isn't freezing. Like I happened to go in this early spring, right in the butter zone there, and it was just a wonderful time. Yeah, probably. Yeah, that's probably the guess. That's my best guess of what I would say. If Protoform Capsule did not malfunction, what animal mode would you give her, or would you even make her a Fusor or Transmetal? It's really hard to tell what she would have been, right? So, like, she has, like, the big arm cannon thing, which on a Beast Wars character would make me think something like a Hornet or a Bee. Like, she could have been a Queen Bee at some point, especially because her robot mode was capable of flight, so a flying alt mode would make sense. But it is very hard to tell because she is so malformed. Like, by design, you're not supposed to be able to tell what she is or what she would have been. I don't know, like a bee of some kind is like my best guess. I really don't have a clue there. If a collab were ever to be made with Transformers and Kamen Rider, which motorcycle would you like to be made? There we go. That doesn't really come down to like which motorcycle, because if they're just going to do that, it's going to be the original Cyclone. It's going to be Kamen Rider Ichigo's bike, because that's the most iconic design. I mean, if I'm being selfish, then, you know, it's going to be the Gills Raider, but beyond that, Kiva had an awesome motorcycle, and they don't do ones like that anymore. They're all dirt bikes now, because dirt bikes are easier for them to use rather than like street bikes, which are now kind of like, Japan got really strict with motorcycle laws, which is why you don't see them using motorcycles nearly as much anymore. I think that's as close as I'm gonna get, though. It'd be the Cyclone. Yeah, beyond that, I'm trying to think of what other ones there are, because there's so many bikes to keep track of. What would following speculation be if Hasbro had just revealed a new Studio Series Commander class Dyna Xenon, regardless of what anyone says about Trigger, and they confirmed that they are making more for Trigger. There's Hasbro Pulse streams. I'm having a hard time following the wording of this. I don't know why. I don't know if it's a late hour or how long I've been talking, but it's like blurring to me. What would following speculation be if Hasbro had just revealed a new Studio Series Commander Class Dyna Xenon? It wouldn't be Studio Series Commander Class. It wouldn't be a Transformer. Why would you cram a Gridman toy into a Transformer toy line? They have like shape-changing robots in them, but that doesn't mean it's going to be the same toy line. If anything, they'd try to cram it into Power Rangers somehow. The wording in there gets really weird. I'm sorry if I'm just not reading it right or just not catching the understanding here, but that's the only takeaway I have for it. Is just like it wouldn't go down that way. Do you think Legacy Armada Optimus will ever be released without the trailer or pants? Most likely not. I get the feeling if they were going to just do like an Armada Optimus on its own, I think they would just do like the original and just make a dedicated deluxe toy for it. Yeah, I don't think you're gonna see him, mostly because I'm pretty sure that's gang molded somewhere. I'm pretty sure that those molds share parts, so I don't think you're gonna see them separated. Let's see. Okay, now I'm just reading comments. I'm sorry for the silence. Do you think Primus should be the next Haslab for next year, or would you buy it or go with your Unicron? I keep thinking about this. So we have to remember, Unicron was a huge risk, and it's actually questionable if it actually succeeded or not, because they had to extend it 15 more days in order to get to the 10,000, and a lot of those orders appeared out of nowhere, so there's actually speculation that Hasbro just finished it off themselves and just claimed that many sold when really only about 8,000 did. Just for the sake of saying that it succeeded. Actually, I think they needed 8,000 and they concluded it was like 10,000 plus or something like that. But it wouldn't surprise me if it actually missed the goal and Hasbro just lied just because they wanted to make it. Just to justify making the Unicron. But Primus has so little character presence compared to Unicron. I mean, it's just a big planet Cybertron. That's the appeal there. But that's not nearly as exciting as Unicron is. And Primus himself is just not nearly as a big focal point character. I think it would be a gigantic risk to do a Haslab Cybertron toy. I think there's better options. I would probably buy it to go with Unicron. I don't know where it would go. Unicron himself is hard enough to figure out a spot for. But yeah, it'd be very, very tricky, very risky. How would you make a Dark of the Moon Driller figure? Personally, I'd say a Studio Series Commander class that focuses on size alone, since I doubt it would have the craziest engineering. The Driller's just a prop piece. I don't think you make a toy out of it because it's a collection of worms. It's not a character. It's not a transformer. It's just like this thing that Shockwave controlled. It's like a sandworm or a tremor. It's like you don't it's its own thing, but it's not like something you need a toy of. I think you're better off just like make your commander class Shockwave, and the Driller is just a prop that comes with it. I think making the Driller as its own toy might be like the worst idea you could have. I don't think it would ever work. I don't think there's anything you could ever do with it. If you still play Monster Hunter, what's your favorite Elder Dragon in the series? I do still play Monster Hunter, but I have been out of it for a while. I try to pick it up here and there. Unfortunately, offhand, I can't remember any of the Elder Dragons. I wish I had an answer for you, but I can't remember any of their names off the top of my head. What was the one that was on the 3DS? Or, like, Monster Hunter Ultimate 4 had, like, the final battle, like, Elder Dragon thing. Like, that was really cool. Like, the Gore Magala, I think, is the one I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of its evolved form that had a different name, and I can't think of that one offhand. What was Hasbro Takara's arrangement in Europe that allowed for Euro G1's existence, and why is this no longer the case post G2? It's basically just as simple as in the UK, Transformers were still selling, so Hasbro UK department just kept making their own designs. It's not one of those like arrangements with Hasbro and Takara or anything like that. Keep in mind, at the time, Takara wasn't really involved in actually engineering the Transformers. That was mostly Hasbro. So when Hasbro, Takara didn't step back into engineering Transformers themselves until we started importing the toys for RID, and then Armada was the first time where Hasbro and Takara worked together to make the Transformer toys, which they still do to this day. But back then, it was just Hasbro UK was still seeing enough profit with Transformers to keep making their own designs. So when they stopped coming in from Hasbro US, Hasbro UK just started making their own. Simple as that. The live-action movie figures and studio series don't often have much potential for repaints or remolds into other characters in the same line, but you think that some could follow examples of how Bumblebee RC was made into Javelin for Generation exclusive characters. As an example, Scrap Metal into animated Scrapper. So, you could definitely, like, the thing is, like, the Bumblebee movie toys definitely have, like, a wider range of imagination you could use to create new designs for. That could work. You could absolutely get away with that. But for, like, a lot of those Studio Series figures, I don't generally think it's the best idea. I do wish we were still in that era of, like, we're just going to repaint them for the sake of repainting them and just do something silly. I really do wish Studio Series would continue by doing just, like, the retro repaints of some of those characters. Like, okay, you did that Voyager class Brawl. Okay, give me the Deep Desert color scheme now, please. Things like that. That what I would go for. Do the dumb G1 Starscream repaint of that big the big triangle. That they did that toy back in the day. They could do it now. Weird stuff. What was your thoughts on the outcome of Death Battle's Unicron versus Galactus? I can't even remember offhand if I watched it. Sorry. I'm gunking up a lot here. Unfortunately, yeah, like, I can't even remember the outcome off the top of my head. I remember Prime versus the Gundam. I agreed with that. I remember Megatron versus Frieza. I agreed with that. I don't think I've seen Unicron versus Galactus. I just kind of fell off of Death Battle, unfortunately. I think the LEGO minifigure scale question wasn't suggesting Transformers as minifigures, suggesting Transformers turn into minifigure scale vehicles. I mean, that would be cool too. Like, if that was the idea, that would actually work pretty well. And then scale with standard LEGO City sets as well as being cheaper. The only trick to that is that when you make them with those smaller scales and the cheaper sets, you're going to risk that robot mode looking pretty messy. And I don't think you're going to be able to get it to actually transform fluidly the way the larger LEGO Optimus Prime can. So you're going to lose something there. Your better bet at that point is probably going to end up being just do, like, Transformers branded LEGO vehicles. Don't worry about their transformation, but, include a little bit of, like, a nod to the fact that they're robots, and then appropriate minifigures. So, like, if you do, like, a small scale affordable Bumblebee, like just like a Volkswagen that's yellow with the Autobot symbol, you just have a Spike. Just have, like, a Spike and, like, probably a Chip Chase minifigure in there as well. And then, like, Bumblebee's trunk opens up so you can store his wheelchair in there. That kind of thing. Question, Trypticon versus Godzilla, who wins? There's so much Godzilla. Godzilla wins. Godzilla wins. Like, it really depends on which Godzilla you're asking about, but for the most part, I think any Godzilla, maybe like the earliest depictions, Trypticon would win. But like, you see how powerful the atomic breath is? Nothing on Trypticon's arsenal has anywhere close to that much power behind it. Do you prefer the American interpretation of Headmasters, Target Masters, and Power Masters, or the Japanese interpretation? I much prefer the Japanese interpretation. I don't like the Nebulon thing. I don't like the idea that, like, this Transformer gun has, like, an alien humanoid inside of it that somehow can bend his legs backwards at the knee in order to accommodate this transformation thing. I never liked that idea. Especially because, like, you're dealing with characters who are limited in lifespan, bonding with Transformers who will potentially live for eons. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. Yeah, I really just prefer the Transtector idea. I think that works a lot better. That, like, the small robot is the main robot, and this body that is just like an extension of him. I think that works way better. Okay, we're getting a big list here. Let's see here. Imagine you've been hired to write a feature-length film or multi-season TV show or video game centered around a fan-favorite pop culture villain, either being resurrected, given a chance to redeem themselves for the past acts, or follow up their past lives. Who would your personal picks be? Okay, so basically, like, who would I pick as, like, a movie or TV show of, like, a villain who gets a redemption arc? So you could do that with Megatron if we're sticking with Transformers. Beyond that, we've had cool options, like Magneto. Magneto's a character where, like, the more you understand the history and the backstory of that character, the harder it is to see him as a villain. So, like, the fact that he's been heroic for a long time in the Marvel Comics kind of makes sense, and I'm kind of, like, there for his, like, redemption arc in X-Men 97. Beyond that, we've had a bunch in the comics that would make good adaptations. Dr. Octopus had a good, like, weird redemption arc where he's pretending to be Peter Parker, but then turns out he likes being a good guy. That type of thing happened. Yeah, what else? That's the thing. It's like, it's a villain, so, like, I don't want him to be, like, completely redeemed. Like, you got away with it a few times for Megatron, but, like, most villains out there, you want that movie at the end. At the end of that movie, you'd want them to have that, like, smirk of, like, I got away with it type of thing. Let's see, if you were offered the chance to voice any character from across the franchise, who would you pick? I wouldn't pick any, because I'm not a good voice actor. I've had people tell me so many times, like, why don't you do, like, voice acting? Like, you actually have a voice for it. Because it's the acting part. I know my acting from Plastic Addict and TJTV skits is on the cheesy side, and not the kind of cheesy that works well to do a cartoon. Like, if I had my choice to just do a character, I'm not even sure I'd want to do a Transformer. I think I just kind of want to be the human that pals around. You know, I don't think I need to be, like... I don't think I need to be, like, a Hot Rod or a Blitzwing. I wouldn't do either one of them justice. Yeah, I'm kind of at a loss here. Who would even be appropriate for me? I leave that to the pros. Do you think part of the reason the 2017 Power Rangers movie failed is because it came out at the wrong time? For me, I think it really just came... I think it came out at the wrong time with just the wrong side. I really feel like the problem with that movie was just aesthetically. Because the thing everyone said was, it looks like Michael Bay's doing Power Rangers. I think it just felt too samey to what Transformers was doing at the time. and it just kind of felt like a cash grab on that. I don't think it was so much as a wrong timing thing as it was just, it's not a very well designed movie, both in the fact that the Power Rangers only show up in the last 10 minutes, but also the fact that the main appeal to them, like the Zords and the suits, all looked awful. Goldar looked awful. Yeah, I think it's more just like a perception thing rather than a timing thing. Armada Tidal Wave should have been a Commander class figure. Good for you. Look, I've said my piece. I will tell you 1,000 ways why Commander Tidal Wave would not have worked. Trust me, it wouldn't have combined with your Megatron the way you want it to. It still would have been too big, and it would have been too heavy for that toy to handle. Trust me on this. I know these toys pretty well at this point. Let's see. If Hasbro and Glyos were to collaborate together, would it be feasible to make Glyos Transformers with both a robot mode and a vehicle mode configuration? No actual transformation, just using the Glyos system pattern. I actually made a fully working Mixmaster out of Glyos parts. It's probably the coolest thing I ever made out of Glyos. That said, Hasbro has proven they really don't need to do that. You know, I think Weaponizers and Armorizers kind of proved that if they wanted to do that, they absolutely could. They don't need Glyos to work that way. But if we're going with like strictly the Glyos engineering, that would potentially be too limited to do on a wide scale. The toy I came up with is very much on the rickety side. It really does not like a lot of its parts. Yeah, it wouldn't work, and Hasbro really wouldn't need it to work. Should Hasbro adapt movie Ironhide arm cannons to his G1 appearance? It would make him stand out as a character. No. Now, if you're doing something like Prime Ironhide that we mentioned before, he does have like a red truck alt mode. He does have some more resemblance to his G1 self with a window chest, but he also has the arm cannons. So you have this like weird mix, but he's doing his own design, and he's doing his own aesthetic. I don't think you mix movie and G1 aesthetics unless you're like making it part of a full makeover, not just like, hey, I'm gonna just stick big cannons on my arms. When you're talking about Generation 1, arm cannons are Megatron's thing. I think if you just slap 2 on Ironhide, I think it diminishes Megatron, whose whole thing is, I strap the biggest gun I could find to my arm, and I'm going to casually use it on my enemies. I think having Ironhide dual wielding those defeats the point. So I think you lose something by doing that. Any idea why we still haven't had Omnibots yet in modern times? So I've kind of speculated this in the past. I think it comes down to downshift. Because, like... no, not downshift. You could do downshift because, like, he's kind of just like Wheeljack. He's just kind of like Wheeljack with no paint apps. You could do that. You could do Overdrive because he has a much more traditional style to him. It's Camshaft. It's the gray one. That's where you get problematic, because the way he works is that, like, the center section of his car becomes his chest without flipping forward like all the others do. So his windshield is pointing forward in both robot and vehicle mode, and there isn't anything in the front like a bumper like there is on any other Transformer. So just the unique way he transforms is what kills that for those toys, because you could come up with other uses for downshift, you could come up with other uses for overdrive, but camshaft, that gets problematic. There's not a whole lot of other ways you could use that mold, because there isn't any other character that transforms the same way. If there's a reason why we haven't seen Omnibots, I think it's that. Because to do all three means eating a loss on one of them. Favorite Showa Kamen Rider and Sentai show? So for Sentai, I haven't really gone into Showa era. A little bit of Live Man, a little bit of Jetman, but not enough to really say, oh yeah, that's my favorite. For Showa era Kamen Rider, it's stronger. That it's always been stronger. I just like how over the top he is as a character. I like the bravado he has as a character. Like, I need a D&D character that's just like super confident walking into battle, just like announcing his presence with a whistle. Since we're getting the 13 Primes, you think there's a chance we will get a new Primus? Potentially. If we're doing the 13 Primes, it would make sense if they wanted to throw a Titan Primus at us. It is difficult to do a Primus that isn't a Titan, as previously discussed, since his rival is a Titan. But doing him as a Titan is also a gigantic risk, so you're kind of stuck on what to do with Primus. I think at best, I think the tongue-in-cheek thing to do would be to just, like, repaint Commander Class Rodimus Prime into, like, the gold version. That version of Primus. I think it wouldn't be satisfying, but just like it's like a Pulse exclusive just for fun. I think you could get away with it. Do you think we will get a new Landcross, and if we got a new one, how would it be made? The thing is, I think Landcross is just going to be too complicated to do at modern engineering. Like, once you put, like, full modern articulation into him, that engineering system, simple as it is going to get really bogged down and difficult to do. Especially since you have to do so much with that toy. It's got to be an upper half. It's got to be a lower half. It's got to be a limb. It's got to be its own independent robot and vehicle. That gets really difficult. I don't think you would get away with that. It's just one of those where I think to do it in modern style, I think it's just overcomplicate things, and I don't think it would turn out all that great. Since so many of the necessary figures for it have been remade in recent years, do you think there's any chance in Hasbro doing a select specialty line where they remake some of the paint jobs from the Universe toy line? Okay, so given what they've been doing with Walmart capsules, I think that's just like the most obvious and easy thing for them to do, is to just do like a Universe 1.0 nostalgia line as a Walmart capsule line or a Amazon exclusive set. So you could do the Silverbolt, you could do Razor Claw. Those molds are available now. You could do like Roulette and Shadow Striker. You could actually go that far to do like the OTFCC Universe toys. I'm trying to think of like other toys from Universe that actually have like modern incarnations. You do have quite a few. You do have quite a few, and it would be great to see. But yeah, that's a shoo-in if they've got enough. Yeah, Kingdom Primal. Kingdom Primal is another one. That's a shoo-in for like the next line after this Cybertron based line they're gonna do. Would you consider watching Ranger Reject? Sentai, word I won't try to pronounce. Daishikaku. I've never heard of it. Maybe in passing. I've heard of like Loser Ranger. I don't know if that's the same thing or not, so I don't know. More or less, it's just like I don't have the time to watch things anymore. It's really what it comes down to. Do you think Transmetal Waspinator's jet mode was influenced by the time Starscream was in control of his body? That wouldn't be a bad call, except I don't know how the engineering timing works out. Because at the time, they were like... it takes like 1.5 to 2 years to develop a toy from initial concept to actual retail release. So the timing on that wouldn't necessarily work. Yeah, that's actually hard to figure out, because I don't know the exact timing of, like, when the episode Possession was made, because that was late season, too, so that would have been much closer to when Waspinator's Transmetal toy would have been designed. I don't think the timing works out for it, but it's possible. I just don't know the logistics of it. Who would you trust to do your taxes? Perceptor, Hotshot, Starscream, or Swindle? I wouldn't trust Hotshot to handle Monopoly money, let alone my money. Starscream swindle out, completely. Perceptor. I mean, if I want any Transformer doing my taxes, it'd be Mainframe. It'd be the one that turns into a computer and could crunch those numbers really quick. Out of that listing, the only one I would trust remotely would be Perceptor. Can your Q Megatron still roll if you still have it? Honestly, I have no idea. I honestly don't know. I have not messed with it in a long time. Now, keep in mind, like, pullback gimmicks don't really wear out if you actually, like, just don't use them. So the pullback motor should still be fine. Like, if I dug it out, it should probably still roll. Also, yes, happy belated birthday. I hope it was a good one. Which two Transformers would be most likely to start a Let's Play channel? Jeez, put me on the spot here. In my head, I would say like Jazz and Blaster would probably be a good mix because both are very much into Earth culture. And like musically they would mesh pretty well. Beyond that, I think you're looking at like I mean, from the modern series, hashtag absolutely. Skybite strikes me as the type. Like you'd have to get into like the more creative type Transformers, like Crosscut in some fictions is a more creative beat of a Transformer. Things like that. How would you feel about a Megatron redemption arc story where he is forced to join the Autobot Wreckers? I think the word forced disqualifies this. I don't think you have a redemption arc unless he chooses to have it. That's my appeal. If you're forcing him to join the Wreckers, assuming they're going to be like a Suicide Squad situation, you're not actually going to turn him good. You're not actually going to have him get redemption. So I think that might be the wrong approach, unfortunately. Yeah, I don't think the Suicide Squad thing would work there. It would be cooler to see Ransack Crumple Zone get brand new molds, but they had to use existing molds. Which two would you personally like to see reused or even partialed? So for Ransack, my thought is like, if you want to keep him like a small guy, then you use like Boulder Crash, like a heavy retool of that toy, the core class. But I think he'd be too small. Like I think you'd have to like. These days, I think you'd have to do like animated Prowl as like the basis for a Ransack. There's not a whole lot of good options for him. That's the downside. There's a lot of motorcycles, but none of them quite do what Ransack needs to do in order to like look like him. And then like Crumple Zone's so hard because it's not even the lack of it's not even the lack of what I'm gonna try to get at here. It's not the lack of three-wheeled vehicles in Transformers. You don't even have a rocket car or something to mimic that aspect of him. And you don't have any Transformer with the gorilla proportions. It would have to be an extremely extensive retool of whoever you chose. Gee, see, like, I'm trying to think of it now, and it's just like there's not a lot coming to mind. You know what would almost work? In a super weird way, is almost a retool of Armada Starscream. Because, like, if you just, like, redid the arms completely to just form the back rear section, the legs are already in the right spot, so those would be fine. He has the two twin cannons that you could have, and so that gimmick is retained. He does have something, like, that nose cone does have something of a resemblance to, like, how Crumple Zone's front end looked, so you could retool that to have like an extra wheel to it. It'd be a super jank Crumple Zone, but it is potentially possible to do that way. It's just unfortunately, I don't think there's any good figure. You really would have to just make a brand new figure for him. There isn't anything close. If the next Transformers toy line in Generations After Generations Prime brought back 2 line-wide gimmicks simultaneously, which would you choose? So, you're not going to do lights and sounds because that's way too expensive to do these days. I think combining ran its course. I think what they're doing with combining now works fine. If I want to go with this, I do want to see a return of Power Masters, the way we discussed before, where it's just like a pegged-on accessory. It doesn't affect the engineering. Because there's just a lot of characters in there that are left untapped. And it goes back to hitting the Titan Return style engineering, where like you had like a little bit of play value with the minifigure. That was fun in Titan's Return. I'd like to see a return of that. Beyond that, oh, what else would be? Like, I would love to see a return of Minicons, but I would like to see them done, like, the way the Weaponizers are done. I don't want to see, like, little robot companions for them, because that feels like such a waste of potential character. I almost want to see, like, a pet for every Transformer. Like, I would like to see, like, what we have for, like, Rise of the Beast, like, the animal Weaponizers, as a basis for, like, how new Minicons work. That would be it. See. In most Transformer shows, there's always a main cast of 5 Autobots. If you were a part of making a Transformers series, which character... Nope! You're asking me to design a TV show. We're not doing those. Sorry. Short answers. Don't ask me to design a cast, please. Which Beast Machine's Viacon design do you like the best? He's just going to say Jetstorm. You're not wrong. If we're talking about the TV show, you're not wrong. If we're talking about in general, we mentioned it before. I love the design on Night Cruise, who was, man, what was his name in... Oh, I can't remember what his name was in Beast Machine, in the Beast Machine's toy line. I don't like his color scheme, but I love his overall robot mode look. So there's a different answer for you. You know those Spark Armors and Transformers Cyberverse, both toy line and show. If Hasbro decided to bring back the Cyberverse Spark Armors into Generations toy line legacy, would the Spark Armors be perfect candidates to be weaponizer or armorizers? Potentially, yeah. I mean, if you're actually going to make them work the way the Spark Armors did, that's a lot of broken up parts to make into one figure if they all have to like latch onto a deluxe. The problem there is having enough ports on existing figures to actually act like armor. That's the trick to actually bringing that back. Yeah, that's a hard call. That's a hard call. I wouldn't mind them trying, though. Do you think that a total reinvention of character design similar to how the Unicron trilogy had changed everything would help revitalize the brand for broader audiences? I would say yeah. I think we are in desperate need like of a total brand like retooling. I think we're desperately in need of like do something different. Do something different. Like I think they're hitting like a backlash point, especially with the kids brands of like every toy line kind of feels the same. And when you're recycling toys from 2015 to put in your toy line for 2024, that's a problem. That's a problem. That might be an exaggeration. I will admit that's an exaggeration. But like 2015 toys makes, like there's elements of them in Cyberverse. And a lot of Cyberverse stuff has been reused for Earthspark years later. It all just feels very samey at some point. I think for like the next kids cartoon, they absolutely need a reinvention. They absolutely do. Do you ever think they would try making a new Prime, i.e. Rodimus, to lead the Autobots again, or are we well past that concept? I don't think you're ever going to get rid of Optimus Prime at this point. I don't think you're ever going to introduce a brand new leader at this point. It's just... He's the Spider-Man. He's the Captain America. Like, he is, like, if you have the Avengers, you need Captain America. If you have Autobots, you need Optimus Prime. I think that's just how it works from now on. And, yeah, like, they've tried a few times to do it without him. Never lasts. Never lasts. Never goes great. If we could get the animated Legacy Optimus with either his wing pack or the canceled Power Master armor, which would you prefer Hasbro to do? That is tricky because there are two ways to do that. What I would love is if they could work the Power Master armor into, like, the rest of his fire truck vehicle mode that we never got a full toy of during animated. That would be great. That would be great. If they could make the Power Master armor do that, do that. But either would be cool. See, how do you feel about what I call Dinobot-itis, where characters are forced into their alt modes for a majority of their screen time, such as the Rise of the Beast Maximals, Age of Extinction Dinobots, etc.? So, for the Rise of the Beast Maximals, I think it made sense because they live primarily in the jungle, where those beast modes are going to be more effective than big lumbering bipedal modes. That makes sense to me. It also, like, upsets the local flora and fauna a little bit less that way. For the Age of Extinction Dinobots, they really just did that out of laziness, because they didn't really want to have to deal with them as actual characters. So it really depends on how they're depicted. Age of Extinction did it very badly. Rise of the Beast, I think, did it better. If you were to travel back in time to stop the legalization of gun... What? What? No. No. Again, gun Megatron question. Also, really bad way of approaching that. Don't do that. Don't do something that's going to start fights in the comments section. Don't. Very poor taste. I'm going to have to start... I don't want to screen these, okay? I don't want to go through this list in advance and delete out all the stuff that's in really poor taste. I just kind of want to go through here and get my general... and, like, give you my genuine reactions to them. So when you throw in stuff like that, oh, it hurts the vibe. Please don't do that. If Bruce Campbell was in Transformers, what character do you think would work best? Oh my god. Why do I want to say, like, Sunstreaker? Like, a character with, like, a really big ego, I think his personality would work really good for. Like, I don't think there's any Transformer that would work good as, like, Ash from Evil Dead, but, like, for Bruce Campbell and, like, some of his acting I've seen, yeah, something along the lines of a cockier character, I think. Thoughts on the unused / CSM exclusive O parts. So I do think they feel kind of thrown together. They don't make the O's combos that they made from all the leftover noises. I don't think make nearly as much sense, and I don't like the songs as much. I think the songs don't really work nearly as well as the others. You can tell they were definitely written at a different time as the others, which does not work for me. How would people react if Hasbro made a figure that has GPS, clear plastic hinges, and the rubberized plastic used in Revenge of the Fallen Demolishor? Wondering why Hasbro lost their minds and are actively trying to lose money. I think confusion. I think total confusion. Because this would literally sink their reputation in all ways if they were to even come close to doing this. Do you have any favorite non-transforming robot characters? In Transformers or in general? Because in Transformers, there really aren't a whole lot to pick from, and none that I can really think of offhand outside of, like, G1 Alpha Trion, and you know they try to cram an alt mode into him every chance they get. If we're going outside that, then things like Johnny Five from Short Circuit. You know, that was a movie I saw as a kid, loved it, still really like Johnny Five. If we want to go weeb, Big O, and I do count that as a character because there is some very weird. There's a lot of weirdness to how the Mega Deuce is operated. I'm looking it over like my various robot my shelves of random robots over here. I could go with those pretty easily. Like, I will admit, I do gravitate a lot to shape-changing robots. What is the most ridiculous alt mode that you want to see in a Transformers toy that's not been done yet? Yeah, I like the answer here, the Traffic Light Transformer, Signal Lancer. One, because, yes, he's an absurd design, but also because Transformers are mostly cars and road vehicles. He'd be a shoe-in accessory for all those. For ridiculous alt modes that haven't been done, man, so many have been done. We've done almost everything that can. We've done almost everything that can be. I don't know, that one's really hard to say. Like, I'm trying to think of, like, what haven't we done that would be ridiculous enough to actually work as a Transformer that I would like to see. We never got a proper vending machine from the 07 movie. That would be fun. That would be kind of silly. Any kind of Nintendo. Because we got PlayStation and Genesis. Like, I wouldn't mind them actually going all the way. But that requires, Hasbro... That requires Nintendo to play ball. Which does not happen often. What soundtrack from Chrono Trigger is your favorite? I can't think of the names offhand of the songs. There's so many good songs in there. It's such a good soundtrack. That's hard for me to choose. I like how gentle the music at the end of time is. God, what else? God, there's so many. I'm trying to go through an entire soundtrack in my brain at the moment. Just suffice to say, I love that soundtrack. That's hard to pick a favorite out of that. Under which Prime's jurisdiction would Fossilizer and similar fall into? I mean, they are technically they are Onyx Primal's domain because they are beasts. They're just like former beasts. Let's put it that way. I don't think they need a new one to represent them though. That'd be a very niche Prime. Would Jetfire and Skyfire work better as separate characters or the same character built with separate personalities? No, I don't. No, you don't really have to do that. Like, there really isn't any difference between Jetfire and Skyfire. Like literally, there is no difference between them. It's just a replacement name. I don't think that would actually work. I know the toys are always packed to brim with the guns, but that's because he's a toy. He's an action figure. He has to come with those. Is the reason Takaratomi is stopping regular Masterpiece because third-party MP flooding the market? No. It's really, if they're canceling, like, keep in mind, they're canceling Masterpiece and they're continuing it as Masterpiece Gatai. Well, Masterpiece G, MPG, because Gatai also stands for, like, grand, great, like a lot of other terms. So, no, it's not because of third-party Masterpiece, or they would have cut that line off a long time ago. It's because they're just trying to refresh the line. You know, we've been getting Masterpiece Transformers for a long, long time now. For, like, literally, like, 20 years. And they've all been kind of run under the same line, under the same package style. They're just trying to freshen it up. You know, and considering they've had a run of QA issues and a run of figures that weren't well received, I think yeah, trying to refresh it and trying to get some new eyes on it, not a bad idea. Do you have any favorite fiddle formers you keep nearby to keep your hands busy while your attention is elsewhere? So I don't really keep a lot, like, so there's always toys on my desk, obviously, but it tends to rotate which one is like the actual fiddle former. For a long time, it was the Core Rise of the Beast Air Razor. I really, really like that toy. I have my Cybertron, Skywarp on hand right now, so I've been kind of fiddling with him here and there. It usually just ends up being whatever the smaller figure I've gotten recently is. That's basically what the fiddle former is at the time. You like Space Ghost? Yep. If you could get any weird Star Wars characters made into figures, what would you pick? Are there any Star Wars characters that haven't been made into figures? I think I gave the answer at some other Q&A. I really like the Shadows of the Empire stuff that they were doing, which would mean I want a Dash Rendar. I want a Dash Rendar as like a Black Series figure. He's a really cool character. I want a figure of him that has more than 5 points of articulation. If you if you had a team of Autobots made up of characters from different series, no. You're asking me to pick an entire roster. That's not a short question. Why does Hasbro keep reusing names of previous continuities? Example, Robots in Disguise, War for Cybertron. Yeah, brand recognition is part of it. Trademark is part of it because there's some terminology they want to keep constantly in rotation. Robots in Disguise is the catch line of the entire toy line. They want to keep that in rotation so they can keep the trademark of that name alive. Because legally, sorry, legally you have trademarks that last for like 5 years or so, but if you haven't used it since then, it becomes free to use again. And then you have like registered trademarks, which last a long time, but those cost a lot more money. So they try to just keep names alive by constantly reusing terminology. Aside from what if Optimus survived the 86 movie, what are some of the most interesting Transformer what ifs to you? Dinobots surviving is interesting. Pterosaur surviving is interesting, because what happens when like the power hungry character who wants to take over gets more power as a transmetal? What do you do then? You do have a lot of options. I mean, I would have to sit here and think about what like the most interesting one could potentially be. But like those are the ones that kind of I can kind of throw out there right now, just because like the Beast Wars what ifs have been on my mind a little bit. As far as like Generation 1, like what if Unicron had destroyed Cybertron? Whether Rodimus was unsuccessful or whether he was too late. What if Season 3 dealt with Autobots and Decepticons who had to, who end up continuing the war even though Cybertron was gone? And does Earth just become like the planet they want to take? That has interesting possibility. I do appreciate the Comfort Channel comments as well. I'm glad I can do that for you. Yeah, to think like the comeback was in 2021. I've been doing like daily videos for like almost 3 years straight. It's crazy. What is your favorite Elder Scrolls race? Can I even remember what they're named offhand? I think the last time I played, I was Imperial because I just wanted to start with extra money. If that's even the right name. Like it has been a hot minute since I started up Skyrim, so I can't remember quite offhand what they're all named. Let's see. What are your thoughts on the repeated attempts to make Transformers and G.I. Joe exist in the same universe? Do you think there's enough merit potential to the idea to justify it outside of just money? Look at the Michael Bay movies. Sector 7, that's G.I. Joe. Nest, that's really G.I. Joe. They should have been G.I. Joe from the start, and then a lot of this would have been a lot cooler, and the movies would have been a lot more interesting. Yeah, you can absolutely do that. You know, they're just like, you know, if they can be like the government watchdogs for the Transformers, if they can be like a source of like another like minor antagonist until everyone kind of gets on the same page, and then like, you know, what, you know, like you could like Cobra came up with like weather dominators and like crazy things that would absolutely be a threat to a Transformer. You could absolutely do some stuff with that. Also, you don't have to worry about, like, I know there's some questions that do tend to, like, upset me, or, like, questions that I literally don't have anything I can do with, but people keep asking me. That's fine. You don't have to apologize. That's fine. You know, don't worry about it. Like, which episode 1 maximal would take, from, which episode 1 maximal would take from the starting group? They can show up later in the series, but there's no guarantee they'll go down the same path. Out of the starting group, that's weird. So, like, you could take Cheetor out because he is the young guy and he probably shouldn't be on a mission like this, even if it was just exploratory. Rat Trap doesn't care about the team at all, so, like, why would you include him on the team? Rat Trap would probably be the more interesting one, because if he was separate somehow, then like you not even like a protoform thing, you could actually have him like someone who was separated from the group and like had to survive on his own for a while. So like it hardens him a little bit, it makes it harder for him to get along, makes his relationship with Dinobot a little bit more violent, makes him a little bit less trustworthy. He becomes like a rogue element in the Maximals. That would be a little bit more interesting. It's hard to choose, though. That's a weird one. Imagine if Megatron built a Dinobots / Transformers killer, Metal Sonic, or like hybrid of Optimus and Grimlock. What will it call? It will call my number because I will want to buy it. I feel like if Megatron built his own Dinobots, they'd be closer to Kaiju. I don't think he would focus on making, like, just, like, copying the Dinobots or just, like, making his own. I feel like it would be more along the lines of, like, the Terrorcons. Like, I really feel like the Terrorcons are, like, the answer to, like, the Dinobots. Like, here's just a bunch of monsters who are just, like on the stronger side of my general minions. Coming up with a name off the top of my head, I apologize, I am terrible with names. It's a very unsatisfactory answer, but like I'm terrible at naming things, so to ask me to come up with a name on the spot is not going to be easy for me. Let's see. Do you think Lego would make sets of Transformers? Okay, so here's the correction. Make sets of Transformers who turn into cars to scale with minifigures. Okay, so we have answered this. We have answered this already. That I think the robot mode element of this would suffer immensely. Even if it was like a 2-in-1 kit that you'd break down and rebuild into a Transformer character. To make it minifig scale, I think it would be very detrimental to it. I think it would make for a decent vehicle, but a lackluster robot. And then you're getting into like, you're getting into the problem of like built to rule, where like the robots don't really look like who they're supposed to be. Have I ever played Destiny 2? No, not really my type of shooter. Like, if I'm playing a shooter game, it's got to be a lot sillier. It's got to be a Fortnite or a Borderlands. I mean, I don't like shooters that take themselves too seriously. I don't like aesthetics that are too gritty. Hang on. Yeah, just not my flavor. What would you do if there was an adult-aimed version of Transformers, but with heavier themes and darker tones? How to win the war? It's called IDW 1.0. There's some really heavy stuff in there if you watch or read. Like I said, Shockwave manages to manipulate an entire universe, and that's before he tried to create a black hole on Cybertron. Or is it after? It's hard to keep track on that one. But yeah, like that's basically where it came from. Toy-wise, I mean, it wouldn't really change. You know, they've made gritty Transformers before. You basically just battle damage them. I swear I've seen this before in this. I'm not going to question it right now, but if you're like but please don't ask, please don't, just another reminder, don't double up, please. These videos are long enough. What characters are there almost you think would be in the upcoming Sonic 2-pack for the collaborative line? See, the collaborative line, almost always the collaborative line is something completely unique. It's not like, oh, you know, Sonic is gonna, obviously Sonic's, you know, going to like transform into Blur. No, nothing like that. So it's a really hard one to determine because, well, number one, you don't have a whole lot of vehicles in Sonic the Hedgehog, so exactly what exactly do you do with them? Also, we know that there is we know that there are two variants. There is a blue, there is a red. So there is a potential that there is one representing Sonic, one representing Knuckles. You know what you really do? You make actual, like, you make them like actual Porcupine and actual Echidna. You like literally make them Beast Wars toys that just turn into Sonic and Knuckles. That's like literally the only guess I have based on the clues we've got right now. Cause like really, like the only vehicles we've got in Sonic are like in the racing games, which I don't think they would make toys of, or like Robotnik's things, which wouldn't be in blue. So I don't know what you do there. I'm going to go ahead and remove that one because I do find that inappropriate. So I'm not going to risk TOS by bringing it up. Suffice to say, no. It's just a timing thing. Don't get your head out of the gutter. Since Legacy has shown love to the Rescue Bots line of toys by releasing / upgrading figures, do you think it would be possible for Transformers GoBots from 2002 Play School line to get any kind of update? Honestly, at this point, I would believe Hasbro would be willing to do just about anything. We've seen obscure Botcon toys. We've seen unreleased G2 toys. We've seen, you know, Rescue Bots. Really, I think anything is viable at this point. I don't think it would be a mass release. I think it'd be an exclusive of some kind. But I think it'd be I do think it would be possible. Let's see. Out of all the unofficial third-party TF companies, Iron Factory seems to be one that's caught your interest the most, considering you did a review of their Grimlock. Is there any chance the characters that pop to mind you'd like to see in their samurai style? So, to be honest with you, I did the review of the Grimlock because the Grimlock was a very generous gift that someone bought me off of my throne, and I appreciated that, so I did that review. There's a few other things that I've gotten off of my throne that I've been meaning to do reviews of, I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But when it comes to, like, Iron Factory, I do really like their samurai style stuff. I'm trying to think of, like, who would be good. The irony here is that the samurai aesthetic would actually be a really good chance to do RC because it gives her a lot of the extra panels she needs to be an actual car. That would be like the hysterical choice of like, hey, we finally figured out how to do RC. She can still look very female and still turn into a car. She just needs to be dressed as a shogun. I know that I would come up with a serious answer, but that makes me laugh too much. Have you checked out the Transformers Warhammer 40K crossover? To my knowledge, there is no official one. If there is, no. I haven't really. I know there's minifigures for Transformers, but they're more for role-playing games, not Warhammer, tabletop army stuff. Yeah, I've not heard of any kind of official crossover between these. And I'm not really interested in Warhammer, so I don't know, maybe it slipped under my radar. Do you think we could eventually get Generations trans tech? That's a huge question. So, trans tech is one of those super niche things that really only, like, very select people in the fandom really know about. And because there's so little to go off about it, it doesn't even really permeate into, like, the greater community. It is really just obscure knowledge. It's possible, and there's some designs out of trans tech I would love to see them attempt, but there are designs that they would never get any other use out of. You mentioned, like, Prime retool from Gamer Edition Prime. I don't necessarily think that would work. Possibly? Possibly. But it'd be a bit of a stretch. Let's see, what else? What else do we have here? I hope we're getting close to the end. It's getting late. I gotta go to bed at some point. Do you think Transformers 1 will rejuvenate the views of how to do Transformers in the eyes of the investors? Or do you think they'll return to the old MacGuffin formula? I genuinely think this is going to be a breath of fresh air. There's no MacGuffin to speak of. It's telling a different story. It's gonna feel very familiar because, you know, it's Transformers in animation. Familiar but feels fresh. That's the trick here. I think it's going to be really rejuvenating, especially because, like, it's not just doing the same thing all the other movies have done. That's the most important thing. What's the biggest Transformers related shelf warmer you've had in your store? Probably the Coronation Starscream. Probably one of the most unnecessary figures they've ever made. For a toy that I'm surprised not a lot of people like I really like the Earthrise Seekers because they're just the classic Seekers but improved, and I really like the classic Seekers. I'm kind of surprised that I've seen a lot of people down on those figures, which I think just chalk up to exhaustion. But no, we've had a healthy stack of those figures for a while now. We've only got 2 left out on the floor. I might have a few more in the back. How successful do you think a Transformers series would be if the cast was entirely made up of fan OCs? I think personally, since a good portion of the fan base has more creativity than Hasbro, characters could be wild, yet a breath of fresh air could create endless amounts of new stories. So, let's see, for starters, I do take issue with saying that the fan base is more creative than Hasbro. Number one, Hasbro, in order to keep Transformers going for 40 years, has had to be extraordinarily creative in more ways than you're thinking about. But also, the fan base far outnumbers the people in Hasbro as a corporation by like 1,000 times. So, obviously, yes, the fandom is going to come up with a lot of things that Hasbro does not. The trick to that is so many OC things are very self-serving and very much like your own interest that you're failing. What you fail to do is appeal to a wider market and audience. You know, for you, you know, Veer. Okay, to use a driving term to also double pun on an Indian name is really clever. I give you a lot of credit for that. That's actually pretty smart. That said, that is very much in your taste and very much in your style. But to have a wider appeal, you can't do that. You actually do have to, unfortunately, play to the common denominator, which does mean sacrificing some creativity. But ultimately, it has to be something as many people as possible can enjoy. So to make it out of to make a series out of fan or cast out of fan OCs, don't get me wrong. There are really, really good ones out there you could absolutely use. We had one in the movie. Long Haul in the live action movies was a fan concept. So yes, like there's ways you could do it, but you would really have to cherry pick, and not every single one would work because so many are so personal, which is a great thing about OCs, but when you go to like marketability, it kind of works against them. But also, yeah, happy birthday to you as well. A little bit, a day late though, but that's pretty close though. If Cosmic Fury wasn't the last Sentai of Power Rangers to use Sentai footage, what other Sentai would you want to get adaptations of? Zyuohger or Kira Major would be your choices. Your problem is there's so many of them that just don't work. There's so many that just don't work. I don't think Zyuohger and its Minecraft-inspired toys would work well in the US because they just don't look that interesting. Like Kira Major does have a weird, kind of an odd look to it that I don't think would work in the US. That's kind of why they started to that's why Bandai of America started trying to work with Bandai of Japan to kind of come up with these things, because they were just doing too much that wouldn't sell well in the US. Tokyuger and its trains. We've been over that a lot. So, if I'm thinking right now, it'd probably be Lupin versus Pat. Because I do like the designs in there, but you'd really have to tweak it to make the Pat Rangers a lot more interesting. They fell way behind, so I'm not exactly sure how you do that. But I think that one would have been viable. And Ranger versus opposing Ranger teams is something they haven't done since Ninja Storm, and that was short-lived. If you're hired by Hasbro as a designer for their Transformers toy manufacturing department, how would you approach designing specific figures? Would they all be new molds? Would some have clever engineering? Would they have a wide range of possibility, or would you do something else to improve said figures? You're basically just describing being a toy engineer. There isn't anything really particularly special. Keep in mind, they can't all be new molds because the molds are so expensive to produce. You have to get multiple uses out of them to actually drive a profit. If every Transformer was using a new mold and then they just did away with it, the brand would be dead by now because it'd be too expensive to maintain. It's used to be common knowledge that Hasbro basically breaks even on the first release and then really sees profit on the remold and the repaints. So you'd have to reuse them. I mean, honestly, for the manufacturing department, I have no knowledge. I have no basis for even to know what I would do differently than what Hasbro's doing already. It's not a process that I'm really familiar with. The only thing I would do is up the QC, because I'm tired of getting figures that break very easily. I'm tired of translucent parts in the wrong places that are going to cause them to malfunction and fracture and things like that. I basically just make sure the toys last better and are actually better when they get into hand. Okay, that's a comment with a lot of replies. There's another comment. What are your thoughts on Last Night Hot Rod? Admittedly, since Rod is my favorite character in the franchise, I kind of want to just hear you go off about how they took the name of a legacy character, slapped onto a lazy French stereotype. I don't like the character. You are correct about that. But here's the thing. By the time we get to the last night, I'm so numb to the idea of a legacy name being slapped on a lazy stereotype character that it just doesn't bug me anymore. Like, I'm just resigned to experience that. It's like, whatever. Whatever. Blitzwing's a Starscream clone. Sure. Sure. Yeah, so you get my drift. Like, at that point, I'm like, it's a bad character, but like the name doesn't even bother me at this point. I've long since accepted that they're just reusing names for the sake of it. Do you like the Sonic movies? Are you looking forward to Sonic 3? I liked Sonic 1, again, because I never get the time to watch anything. I never got around to Sonic 2. It's on my watch list. I've tried to start watching it several times, never get around to finishing it. I am looking forward to Sonic 3 because I think the casting for Shadow is hysterical. I'm also, like, really rooting for Rouge to be in that movie as well. Which figure from the Siege Sideswipe mold is your favorite? I would say Gigawatt, but I feel like that's cheating because he's such an extensive retool. There's so many versions of that toy at this point. I mean, it's dull. It's a dull answer, but it really would just be like the basic Sideswipe. Now, the Shattered Glass Sideswipe comes close. I do like the extent that they've gone to with that. Now, we do know there is a listing for an Armada Wheeljack, so we know that repaint is coming. When that one comes out, that's my new answer. For now, it probably is just the Earth version of that Sideswipe. If Hasbro doing a line continuity 2.0, how they gonna do? So the way to do that is to just come up with a lore Bible first. Instead of developing it while you're getting all these projects underway, you have the core lore done in advance, and you give this to everyone. You're doing comic books, here's the Bible. You're doing the cartoon, here's the lore Bible. You're doing the video game, here's the lore Bible, etc., 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 to make sure everyone has a starting point. And what you do, you have one like producer behind everything. He's attached to everything to make sure none of this is contradicting itself. That's what the original one lacked, because it was the Hydra problem of one head is not talking to the other. So when you have all these different branches all kind of doing their same thing with just a rough outline, you get a lot of stuff that contradicts itself. So, yeah, and you do it in order, too. Like, if you have a team that's doing the prequel story, make sure that that prequel story is well established and isn't going to change in development, and then hand it over to whoever's doing the cartoon in the present day. And then you use that as a basis for all the filler stuff that the comics and the novels provide. You just need someone to keep all the heads of the Hydra looking in the same direction. That's what Aligned was missing before. Off the top of your head, why do you think Hasbro hasn't done a Power Rangers and Transformers crossover yet? So part of it was they at one time felt that it wasn't necessary because they're both lines about shape-changing robots, so they didn't feel like it was like a far enough departure. I could see that reasoning, but also I'm pretty sure when they said that, they didn't feel the need to do that. I now feel that Power Rangers is in the same situation as G.I. Joe, where they probably need the crossovers just to maintain some kind of relevancy and viability on the toy shelf. So I would absolutely see them doing that. But no, like, I do think just like a Megazord in Dinobot colors and a Volcanicus in Megazord colors is so easy and so overdue. And even if those mold, I don't like Volcanicus. But if they do either Volcanicus like that, I will buy it. I've seen your fellow podcasters, Vangelis and Aaron, do this on his YouTube. So for the 40th anniversary, would you be interested in doing a video delving into the origins, TFW 2005? I wish I had gotten invited in on that, just so it was the TFW crew doing that, but also, like, me and Vangelis keep very different schedules. I don't want to ape his ideas. You know, like, for a while I was going through and finding, like I was going to make a video based on, like, old newsgroup posts of, like, hey, someone's doing this fake Transmetal Megatron in blue. You can tell it's photoshopped. It's totally fake. So things like that. But he went to do things like that too. So I'm like, part of me is like, because like, just because he's been my friend and because like the things we've done have been so similar over the years, I don't want to ape the stuff he's doing. So I'm probably not going to do that. I'm doing my own thing for the 40th anniversary year. I've got the whole top 10 things that are going to drive me nuts. Which version of Optimus Prime has your favorite fire truck mode between RID, Cybertron, Galaxy Force, and animated? So, I would say animated if we actually got to have anything that involved the rest of that fire truck. Like I said before, we never got that. So, between the other two, I will admit, I love the look of Cybertron Optimus Prime's vehicle mode. It ain't a fire truck. Let's be real here. Whatever he's turning into, it ain't a fire truck. So that would default me down to the RID 2001, which is still a really good one. Coming up to the end here. Oh boy, I didn't even want to look at the time, how long this has been. I know we're over 2 hours. What Power Core Combiner 2-pack deserves a Generations update in Legacy's successor line? Video goes to Smolder. Smolder was really good. I like the idea of like a Decepticon like emergency vehicle. Though I like the idea of there's a mini-con that like Firebot. One of the Firebot minicons got repainted into like a bright green hazard, like a chemical hazard truck. That would make a really cool, unique take on Smolder. Name wouldn't work anymore, but you know, that's what you do with that vehicle mode to make it evil. There's a few other ones in it. Can I even remember? The Leadfoot was neat. Cause the big hand thing, like Leadfoot was okay. I'm trying to think. Like the Huffer was neat, but you'd just be doing G1 Huffer now. That's not terribly exciting. Oh, Heavy Tread. Heavy Tread was really cool. Like that was probably like the coolest of those 2-pack toys. I like your Smolder idea though. I think Smolder works. If you had a beast mode, what would it be? One of the more popular questions. It's a Griffin. I would love to be a Griffin. And finally, since you talked about WWE recently, who's your favorite WWE wrestler? To be fair, I watch a lot more AEW than I do WWE. I keep up with WWE via their YouTube channel and their social medias. I don't actually watch the shows live anymore. But right now, if I'm picking all time, it's going to be a Chris Jericho or a Rob Van Dam or a Shawn Michaels. If I'm picking current roster, it's Cody Rhodes, because I have an enormous amount of respect for everything he did to get to where he is right now. Just tremendous amount of respect for the work he put in. And that is going to do it. My recording says 2.5 hours. Guys, this is getting absurd. I'm going to have to start splitting these videos into like 2 parts. Oh, this is absurd. My editing software is going to hate me. But that is another Q&A. Thank you very much for watching. Remember, if you want to leave one, you know the rules by now. One question each. Short answers only. Don't ask me to come up with entire casts. Don't ask me to come up with full storylines or cartoons. Quick in and out answers so we can get through everybody. If you have a comment, please mark it as a comment. Very important. And keep everything tasteful. You know the channel by now. You know what you shouldn't be posting. I'm probably going to be adding a post at the top, and I'm going to pin it with not only the normal rules, but also just the stuff that I think should be banned from here on out. Realistic gun transformers, banned. Gundam, banned. Just the stuff that I have no answer for, or the stuff that we've answered a million times, and the answer is always the same. So, I'm going to think on that. More importantly, I'm going to rest my throat now. So thank you everyone for watching, or listening along, and I will see you next time.